and my husband took them out of the house right now. I'm a very authentic, honest person, and I just have a survival story, many actually. And in going through everything I went through, I realized that I believe, I was kept alive so I could inspire other people to heal because I've gone through the worst of the worst and I have my life back and I'm happy. And I didn't think that was possible.
When you say the worst of the worst, take us right from the beginning. How did that start and what exactly happened to you?
How far back do you want to go?
I want to go as far back as your child.
Okay. I had what I thought was a normal upbringing, but I had some buried memories of abuse. And I struggled with my weight from, I don't know, at least the age of 5. I remember going on my first diet at 8. And eating was a way for me to deal with the feelings of it not being acknowledged by either of my parents, and a way that I just kind of covered up the pain. And I guess I was looking for the fulfillment that I expected to get from my parents or the acknowledgement or something. And so I struggled with food my whole entire life. I didn't think it was possible for me to lose weight. I used to joke that when I looked at food, I gained weight. And I later on found out I had a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is when you have too much insulin and your hormones are off and it keeps you from ovulating. And most women, a lot of women don't really know, or even men, that normally during a cycle, one ovary makes about 5 to 7 follicles and they start maturing until they release an egg. And as the one gets bigger, that one takes over and the other ones disappear. Now, when you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, you can get about 8 to 12 follicles per ovary, and none of them get bigger. So they don't disappear because one doesn't take over and create the correct, hormones for that to happen. So it's all kind of interesting. But when you don't ovulate because of making too many follicles, they line up around the outside of the ovary, or the inside, but the edge, and it looks like a string of black pearls. So they call it black pearl syndrome. And you can regulate this by going on a raw vegan diet. I lived with it for, gosh, I can't remember how many years. I didn't go raw until I was in my late 30s. So I had irregular periods, a 9-month long period, a lot of menstrual problems. And then when I went raw vegan, it disappeared within 6 months. I dropped a lot of weight. I didn't lose 120 pounds at the beginning, but I dropped a lot of weight and then I couldn't lose anymore. And that's kind of when things like I started figuring out that my thyroid wasn't working and there were some other issues. And then I had to start going backwards. I knew that I had had an injury, but nobody told me how serious it was. When I was in labor with my first son, I had a placental abruption, which is basically it causes a hemorrhage, and I lost over 30% of my blood, which killed my pituitary gland. And when you're pregnant, you have 2 to 3 times more blood than normal, and your pituitary gland gets 2 to 3 times bigger than normal. And so it's like an over blown up water balloon that if you touch it, it's going to pop. So if you don't get oxygen to the pituitary gland through your blood, it goes into shock and dies, but it dies slowly. Part of it dies right away, and the rest dies slowly. So I just kept getting sicker and sicker over the next 8 years. We didn't know why I couldn't get pregnant again. And I did fertility treatments to have my second son. But the first sign that something was seriously wrong, which all doctors know about this, they should know about this condition. A lot of them ignore it, but they were taught, is that my milk didn't come in. So when your pituitary gland is damaged, you don't make thyroid, you don't make cortisol, you don't make a ton of hormones that you need to live. And it's kind of like the ignition in a car, the pituitary. You can have the engine, the alternator, but if you can't turn that ignition, that car is not going anywhere because it can't send the signals to the other things to tell it what to do. And so that's what happened with my brain. So my body stopped sending signals to make enough cortisol to stay alive, to not make too much adrenaline so that I need more cortisol. So I had to learn how to treat this all because none of the doctors helped me. It took 8 years to figure out what happened. And then I went to different endocrinologists and they would laugh at me with an MRI in hand showing that my pituitary gland was flattened. And they're like, oh, this only happens in third world countries. It's not possible. You don't have it. I'm like, I've had every testing done that shows I have it, but they would fight me and fight me. And so they wouldn't give me medicine. And so to keep myself alive, I went raw vegan. It just kind of, the answers kind of started showing. And I learned that I could take away about 60% of the energy my body uses on digestion by eating raw. Because our body uses about 80% of our energy to digest food. And most of us are eating a high cooked, processed diet of food that's dehydrated. I'm not telling everybody you should go and become a raw vegan for life. But I'm saying if you want to lose weight or you want to heal your body or you want to do both at the same time, go raw vegan. Get into juicing, intermittent fasting. So I started with just eating fruit all day. And then at one point well, I should say I kept myself alive all this time doing this. And then I finally got treated and thought, yay, I'm going to be fixed, right? The medication started killing me. I lost my teeth. I was in the hospital. I was having seizures. I couldn't swallow. My vocal cords got paralyzed partially, and I sing, so that was very emotionally painful. Um, I couldn't swallow without gagging. I got diverticulitis. I basically ended up, I had already lost all my weight at this point. But I ended up in the hospital with diverticulitis and they wanted to remove part of my colon. And I said, no, but I'll take the antibiotics so you can let me out of here and the morphine because it was painful. I had a perforation in my colon and I went home and I prostrated and I begged God to let me die or to show me how to heal and make it so clear that I'll have no doubt in my mind. I was really praying for death at this point. I was tired of living a life where I was constantly in pain in bed for months at a time, not understanding that there's something else going on with my body that I didn't know about. And so I was hoping for death. But the next
If I
day,
may, if I may just stop you there for a moment, because there's something that you said when you mentioned the pain that you're going through and that you were at the point where you didn't want to continue forward. I know a number of women who, once they get to a certain weight, there's that mental health imbalance where they don't want to live their life that way anymore. And I wonder how many of them have thoughts of ending everything and not continuing forward because there's a suffering, maybe internally and externally. So when you mentioned that you were battling that and that you prayed for it, tell us a little bit, like you told us your journey from childhood to now. Tell us maybe a little bit about your state of mind as you were going through what you were describing just now.
I was gaslit by the medical community until the point where I lost my self-esteem even. I was just disrespected, laughed at, made fun of. My husband drove me around to 4 ERs one day. They refused to give me cortisol and I was in adrenal crisis. I got treated at the fourth ER, but it's like you have all these issues going on and nobody believes you and you just don't feel seen or heard. And so I wanted to remove myself. And I just had so many different health issues going on because your body can't function when it's not working properly. Although today I don't take any pills or any medication, which according to doctors is not possible.
Did you think that it was because you mentioned God, so I get the impression that you have you have a sense of faith and
Yes.
you believe in it, right? And I know many people who are of the faith, sometimes they look at the struggles of life as a test, right? I'm going through this because my faith is going to get me through it. And I know some people, their faith gets shaken, and some people, they hold strong. You continued forward. And when you mentioned that you're a gaslit, I can definitely see that happening because you're going to the professionals. Sometimes maybe you have to use air quotes to describe them, right? And they're telling you nothing is wrong, but you're feeling that something is wrong.
And
Was there a point?
it
Sorry to
wasn't
interrupt you.
even
What?
just
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
feeling. I had papers, I had testing, I had images, I had proof.
Was there ever like, did you feel that you're going to the wrong people at that point, or did you just think that, hey, it's the world literally against me?
I felt like the world was against me. I was also going through stress with my in-laws trying to destroy my marriage. They don't like that I homeschool, and other things. They don't like my natural way of life, but they're not really involved in our life anymore. But there was a point where it's like, I'm going through all these health conditions. I was having issues with my father. I had to cut him out of my life completely, until he passed. And my in-laws, and I'm like sick, and I'm trying to raise two kids, and my husband and my kids have ADHD. So like I'm going through all this, and I'm like, I can't even get myself together. How am I supposed to help my family? Like, how am I supposed to take care of a home and children when I can't even get out of bed without my leg popping out of the socket? It was that bad.
Like for me, when I look at, if I take it away from weight loss and some of the traumas that I've gone through personally, or maybe some of the traumas that some of the women that I work with have gone through, many of them struggle with the body image. There's, and the source of their struggle has always come from the outside. And then eventually they start to feel it internally. And some people actually begin to believe it. You had to remove people out of your life, like you're removing a parent out of a child's life. That is difficult for a lot of people to do, and it's even more difficult for a lot of people to even understand. And you were going through all of this around the same time. Like, how did you cope with all these different traumas from all these different areas that's impacting you
Therapy,
all at the same time?
therapy. I found a therapist that did hypnosis. And that helped me a lot because there were some things I needed to address that I had buried for a very, very long time. And once he helped me recover those memories, I was able to start understanding a lot about some of my self-defeating behaviors were like coping mechanisms from my childhood that I did when I needed to survive, but that are no longer, I say are because I still slip sometimes, but they no longer serve me. And so I had to learn how to change those. And then I also had to get my whole life back. So I've had to work and learn how to retrain my brain, walk again, all this. But I can say that losing the weight doesn't make the problems go away. We all, fantasize when I hit this weight, my life is going to be perfect. I'm going to get that guy. A lot of those guys are creeps. So, look for the good guys. But the guys that notice the hot girls, there's some good ones, but a lot of women think like that. When I look this way, he's going to want me. But do you really want him? There's a book my mom had me read, Are You the One for Me? Very long, thick, thick book. But I was in a place of life where she's like, you need to look at your behavior and why you're not finding what you want. And I read that book before I met my husband. And I've been with my husband for almost 18 years now. And like we have a really good, solid, loving marriage. We have issues. Of course we do. He's got ADHD and I'm more like OCD, but like we make it work. Um, but that thing is like really work on yourself. Why am I eating? What's going on? What little changes can I make? And one of the changes I would tell anybody, first, intermittent fasting. That means only eat between a 6 and an 8 hour period of the day. Okay. The rest of the day, you can have water. You don't eat nighttime, especially. Just doing that alone will help you drop some weight, even if it's just a little bit without exercising. Then if you replace your breakfast with fruit, you can eat all the fruit you want. You don't have to count calories, although I have a habit of counting them to make sure I get enough. Because with fruit, you can underestimate. You think you're getting a couple hundred calories and maybe you got 50, 60. So normally a portion of fruit is like an apple or an orange or a banana, a cup of strawberries, a cup of blueberries. The apples and the bananas are about 100 calories each. A cup of strawberries is about 50 calories. Same with blueberries. So if you're looking at calories, you can think that way. I go in portions now. So if I want to up my calories, I go for medjool dates or any kind of date, but I blend them into a smoothie. I'll just blend them frozen. I'll just eat fresh. My kids make their smoothies. But just having that one meal a day, you're going to start seeing a change. And then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, this is happening a lot quicker and I'm feeling better. I have more energy because I'm getting all this vitamins and live food that, God made for our bodies. It's our fuel. It's like putting in the right gasoline. And then you're like, I wonder what happens if I start eating fruit for lunch too. And so you do. And you're like, wow, I feel satisfied. I'm still having whatever it is I need in the evening or for my cooked meal, and I'm dropping weight. Now I'm going to start working out because I have more energy and I'm seeing the results. And then what happens is a lot of people end up making it so that they're raw until 4. They stick with it because they can still eat other food and still lose weight or maintain their weight. So the thing is, I went into the raw food for healing, and the benefit was it helped me solve a lifelong problem of battling with my weight because I was focusing on healing myself. And as I healed myself, I had to learn to stay calmer, to control my adrenaline,